So this afternoon we have Marc Miller, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, and the Honorable Randy Boissonnault, the Minister of Employment, and they are here to make an announcement about strengthening the temporary resident programs and migration pathways. I'll leave it to you guys.
And so what we did is we accelerated hiring, we created jobs, we supported Canada's small businesses, and it also meant that we brought in more temporary foreign workers. And we welcomed those temporary foreign workers to fill hundreds of thousands of job vacancies. Coming out of the pandemic, we had 1 million job vacancies, and the entire ecosystem was asking us to bring in more workers so we could jumpstart the economy. We did that. Now we're closer to 500,000 job vacancies, and you have heard the Prime Minister, you've heard me on this matter, and now Canada's fully recovered from the pandemic. We have the strongest economy in the G7. Foreign direct investment per capita is tops in the world. And so what we're doing today is making sure that the measures that we introduced stick and that we actually reflect today's economic realities. Let me state that I've always been clear that the temporary foreign worker program is and has always been a last resort measure and should never be used to replace Canadian workers who want the jobs, and it should not be used to suppress their wages. And so last month, the PM was clear and announced changes to the temporary foreign worker program, and those changes will come into effect September 26th. And I want to just review them because it's going to be important for the substance of my comments today. So these changes included reducing the cap from 20% to 10%, and in census metropolitan areas where the unemployment is higher than 6%, there's a refusal to process in the low-wage stream. I've also undertaken over the next now 60 days to come back to you all with our plans on the high-wage stream. Today, I'm confirming that this change will also be applicable to the traitement simplifié in Quebec, which currently does not have a cap limit. As I've said before, and I'm going to state it again, the temporary foreign worker program is an accordion. It's meant to flex with the economy. When we have a high number of vacancies, we can bring in more people, and as the economy tightens, we close the accordion and we make it harder for people to come in because Mark and I and our government want those jobs to go to Canadians. We want them to go to people who live here. We want them to go to students. We want them to go to newcomers. We want them to go to people who want to take those jobs, point à la ligne. And so we're working hard every day to make sure there's more jobs for Canadians. We're seeing a slight increase in unemployment, which is a natural result of the high interest rates, which are also coming down. And now with inflation at 2% and having come down over 8 months, that's a critical piece to see a turn in the economy. And today we're making good on our promise to actually reduce the numbers in the temporary foreign worker program and to make sure that the program applies across the country.
Less than a year ago, we announced 3 big measures when it comes to international students. 1, a national cap and a redistribution of the student permits out of a spirit of fairness across the provinces and territories. 2, a very important limitation on spousal permits. And 3, as part of making sure that the system is dealing with the fraud that we had seen, a process of letter of acceptances that involves the provinces certifying that the institutions that international students are coming into are indeed those that we see on the applications. Those were very important in addition to some of the measures that I announced in December with respect to the solvency requirements of students that have to come to Canada. Canada is not an inexpensive place to live in. And in addition to the work hour amendments that we have made that limit the work hours to 20 and now coming up 24 hours for students studying full time. We expect students to be doing exactly that. But let's set the table further a little. When you look at the growth that we have seen in people that are temporary residents of Canada, that's something that has grown almost exponentially over the last few years, from about 437,000 individuals in 2019 alone to about 1.2 million in 2023. That comes with consequences, but let's not also forget the importance that immigration generally, the importance of people that are here on a temporary basis has done for the economy. The Bank of Canada has said it, the International Monetary Fund has said it, the immigration writ large has been in part responsible for preventing us from going into a recession, has been important for the net growth in the gross domestic product. Again, this has been important, and it's been important to the growth of the country, but I think it's safe to admit that we have allowed certain aspects of this to get overheated, and probably for too long. I made in March an announcement an important one to reduce the number of people that are here temporarily from 7% to 5% over the next 3 years. The Bank of Canada rightly highlighted that a number of the measures that we have taken, while important, were not sufficient in order to address that number and to give people the satisfaction that those numbers were going to come down in that period. Today, along with the announcements that Randy is making, we are announcing further measures, specifically, importantly, with respect to international students, and a few other ones that I will go through here shortly. First, I'd like to say that the measures that we've taken with respect to international students, and again, taking a step back, international students and the postgraduate work permits that come with it, occupy about 50% of the temporary workers that are here in Canada. The programs that Randy administers about 10-15%, depending how you're counting. So the growth in the international student space, along with the postgraduate work permits that come with them, the spousal permits that come with them, are ones where we owe it to Canadians, and in the context of an economy where the labor market in some areas is constricting, we need to adjust accordingly. I would say that the measures that we've taken up to now are working. You have seen more than anecdotal evidence that there has been an impact on certain rental markets where students are more prevalent. And this is an announcement in advance of the annual level plan that I know a number of you are eager to hear me on, that I will be announcing on November 1st. And integrating for the first time ever a fuller picture of what immigration looks like in our country and what we are projecting for the economy, for Canada, for our social cohesion for the next 3 years. So today I am announcing 6 additional measures, and I'll go through them in a little bit of detail because I think that's important. The international student cap is here to stay. Over the next 3 years, and I think this is important, we expect these changes to yield approximately 300,000 fewer study permits. Canadian language benchmark, CLB, level 7 for university graduates and CLB 5 for college graduates will be required for anyone applying for post-graduation work permit on or after November 1st of 2024. We know that people that can speak the language are better equipped to succeed in Canadian society. This is a more stringent requirement that I think is very important if we are going to continue the successful story of integration of some of these people into Canadian society. Fourth, for prospective students applying on or after November 1st, post-graduation work permit eligibility will depend on the level of study. Graduates from bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degree programs will remain eligible for a work permit up to 3 years. These graduates are more likely to acquire transferable knowledge and skills and be able to adapt to changing economic circumstances over the long term. Over the next 3 years, we expect these changes to yield approximately 175,000 fewer postgraduate work permits. In the near future, we'll also take further measures to restrict eligibility to spousal open work permits. The 5th measure that I'm announcing today will be to further limit work permit eligibility to spouses of students in doctoral and certain master's select professional programs and certain pilot programs. And over the next 3 years, we expect that measure and these changes to yield approximately 50,000 fewer work permits for the spouses of students groups. And 6th, unrelated to students and postgraduate work permits, we'll also be limiting work permit eligibility to include only spouses of highly skilled, specialized workers such as C-suite executives, scientists, engineers, lawyers, professors, and technicians, or of workers in sectors where there are those key labor shortages. Spouses of workers in critical sectors like healthcare, construction will also obviously continue to be eligible for those work permits. As a quantitative measure, again, over the next 3 years, we expect these changes to yield approximately 100,000 fewer work permits. Again, I do stress that these are estimates and obviously will need to be tracked closely. Those measures that we have taken internally to be a little more restrictive on who gets visas, looking at countries where we are seeing people exploiting the visa system, that is to say that those that are claiming for asylum are not legitimate asylum claimants, is a challenge to the system, particularly given the volume of people that are looking to come to Canada. Again, as I said in French, it is a privilege to come to Canada. It is not a right. If you compare the numbers of people that have come in, for example, in one country where we have had some of those challenges from India, we have seen those visas jump down from around 50,000 in January to less than 10,000 in August. Again, these are preliminary numbers, but it is an indicative sign that the measures that we have taken over the summer after discussions with my provincial colleagues are working. There's more work to do. And again, there are a number of measures that we need to take to make sure that when asylum seekers come to this country, they get due process, but that there is no abuse in the system. And it is incumbent on the federal government to act when it controls the levers, particularly at the border.